When I watch Mr. Trudeau through the lenses that I've developed over the years, I see someone who never, ever says a true word. And so I've met lots of people like that. They're all persona, and everything they do is crafted in a sense to obtain what they think is appropriate in the situation, whatever that might be. It's all instrumentality. And so when Mr. Trudeau comes out and addresses his audiences, it's all a game. It's all an act. All of it. My observation has been that every chance he had to retreat from his pharaonic position, let's say, he doubled down. I've tried to steelman him, I try to put myself in the position of the people that I'm criticizing. I think he's a narcissist.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson argues that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is a narcissist who has been corrupted by power. It is a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. But behind this mask of extreme confidence lies a fragile self-esteem that's vulnerable to the slightest criticism. People with narcissistic personality disorder may be generally unhappy and disappointed where they're not given the special favors or admiration they believe they deserve.
I've watched him repeatedly and I've listened to him a lot, and I've tried to do that clinically and with some degree of dispassion. And that's hard too, because his father, Pierre, devastated the West in 1982 with the national energy policy. And Trudeau is doing exactly the same thing again. And so as a Westerner as well, I have an inbuilt animus, and one that's well-deserved, because Central Canada, especially the glittery, literati elite types in the Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto triangle have exploited the West and expressed contempt for the West far too much for far too long. And that's accelerating at the moment, for example, with Trudeau's recent attack on the Canadian farmers. He's an enemy of the oil and gas industry, which is an utter and absolute bloody catastrophe. And look what's happened in Europe, at least in partial consequence. And he's no friend to the farmers. Well, he's lying, and I'm not. So that's a big part of the issue. I don't believe that he ever says a word that's true. From what I've been able to observe, it's all stage acting. He's crafted a persona. He has a particular instrumental goal in mind, and everything is subordinated to serve that.
Why? So, what's the motivation?
The same motivation that's generally typical of people who are narcissistic, which is to be accredited with moral virtue in the absence of the work necessary to actually attain it.
Canada, under the leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, is extending its political interests to such an extent that now it is even willing to harness the freedom of speech and go even beyond the democratic constitution of Canada, has reached an alarming stage where the freedom of speech is not as free as it might seem. Imagine having eyes and not seeing, having a voice but not able to speak, having ears but not able to hear. Such is the case of Canadians under Justin Trudeau. The Canadian Constitution and laws have been personalised by the government, exceeding the spirit of democracy.
I'm not a fan of Trudeau because I don't think he's capable of saying an honest word, and I truly mean that. And I've watched his speeches over and over, watching to see what's going on with him, and all I see is acting. Despite that, why would I be happy that the leader of my country ran away from a protest citing security concerns, which is a very bad move to begin with? It's like, well, I have to leave because you people are so dangerous.
You're saying it shows weakness?
Well, no, it's worse than that. It's an instigation. It's an instigation because he said that the reason he had to leave was because of security concerns, which means you people are dangerous and not to be trusted. And I don't think the truckers so far are dangerous and not to be trusted. And I've been watching them handle this. They're playing this. It's been very peaceful. for the number of people who were involved in the demonstration. And that's despite the potential effect of instigator types, and that's a real threat.
Why do you think he was and still remains attractive to a substantial subset of Canadians? I mean, people seem to regard him as charming and caring. And I think he is charming in a kind of shallow sense. But it isn't obvious to me at all that he's caring, but he seems to play the part, and he plays it well enough so that, while many people, and this is true of people all over the world, certainly buy the act. So why do you think that is? And how do you combat that?
Dr. Peterson called out Trudeau for spreading propaganda regarding Nazis and swastikas in Canada. After a protester who may or may not have been a plant waved a Nazi or swastika flag, the Prime Minister took the opportunity to imply that a scary ideology is rampant in Canada. He explains that it was very much likely that the protester felt that the current leadership in Canada was similar to Nazis, rather than the idea that the protester was a Nazi.
He's playing a role. The swastika thing, it's like, really
just
about Canadians? Really? We're going to be worried about Nazis in Canada? Because I had protests, for example, where people accused me of attracting Nazis. First of all, that just isn't a thing in Canada. There isn't a Nazi tradition. And I don't know anyone in Canada who's ever met anyone who's met someone who was Canadian and who was a Nazi. And so that's just a non-starter. And so when that sort of thing gets dragged into the conversation right off the bat, that Canadians shouldn't be subjected to the inherent violence of a swastika. First of all, it's not even obvious what that swastika was doing there. There's reasonable evidence to suggest that the person who was waving it was either a plant or someone who was making the comment that was what was characteristic of the government, not of what they believed. Now, no one knows, because the story around that event is messy, and it's not like there were credible journalists who were going in there to investigate thoroughly.
I think it's a very dangerous thing to attack the man rather than the ideas. But you're making, as a rule of thumb, but you're making a case that in this case that can't be done because there is a personality trait that is uniting diverse policy decisions that isn't ideational or ideological even. It is in fact personal. And so my sense of Trudeau, initially, I was very upset with his decision to run for Prime Minister, because I thought, well, you don't know anything. And you're attractive and you can behave well in public and you have a charming facade. But you don't know anything in any real sense, and there's no indication that you do. You're not particularly well educated, and you're not particularly accomplished, and this is actually a hard job. But worse than that, the only reason you even have the vaguest possibility of succeeding is because you have the same last name as your father.
Jordan B. Peterson said, "Canada has been given over to the commissars, something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime." He says he'll make the issue public in the days ahead. This was all about our today's discussion. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you found this video informative, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay informed on the latest news and videos. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.